I was walking to work yesterday in 37-degree rain, and I thought to myself, I can't wait until winter is over. I think the worst part for me is the gray skies. Some snow and rain, that's okay. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm used to long, cold winters. But it's the lack of sun that just really starts to get me down. Even though we've had a nice couple days here and there over the past few months, I can't help but feel today that winter is going on forever. And when I get really down about the weather, I start to wonder, do we really need winter? Couldn't the creator of the universe have worked a little bit harder and installed a better climate module on the planet Earth so that we could all live at 74 degrees all year round? Anyone else with me? Winter is more, though, than just a season of rain or cold. Winter is a metaphor for those times where it seems like there isn't any hope for things to get better. I think there's a lot of people experiencing that kind of winter right now. Here at Berea, classes are starting to get tough. Papers are starting to come due. Group projects are starting to happen. And the pressures of what comes next are on everyone's mind. Did you have your summer plans figured out yet? What are you doing after graduation? These kinds of winters and many more might last a little bit longer than the seasonal kind. This brings us back to Job. Poor Job. In case you don't know all the details of Job's story, in the beginning of the book of Job, Job is presented as almost this mythically perfect character whose life is filled with blessings because of the righteousness of himself and his family. This is what sparks a conversation between God and Satan, the idea that Job is only faithful because of all his blessings, riches, and prosperity. When that is taken away, Satan suggests Job's faith will fall apart. When Job becomes cursed and his riches disappear, the book of Job tells of the speeches of his friends and family who constantly suggest that Job must have made some kind of mistake, that Job has brought his misfortune upon himself. In the midst of this suffering, this winter of life and of the soul, Job gets angry. He cries out to God with this bitter speech and demands the chance to account for his righteousness before God, to prove that he was and remains righteous, to prove that Job doesn't deserve what happened to him. This moment where Job stands before God and cries out and questions reminds me of one of my favorite poems by Heinrich Heine. It's called Fragen in German, or Questions in English. By the sea, by the bleak nocturnal sea, stands a young man, his heart filled with melancholy, his head with doubt, and with somber lips he questions the waves. Oh, solve me the riddle of life. Tell me, what is the meaning of man? From where is he coming? To where is he going? Who dwells there, high above the golden stars? There's the sound of the waves' eternal murmur, the lamenting of the wind, the fleeing of the clouds, the twinkling of the stars, indifferent and cold. And a fool awaits the answer. Sometimes we're not so different than Job or the speaker in this poem. When our family is a mess, or that incomplete ruined our plans, when our mom gets sick or the relationship ends, when our identity is mocked, there's often nothing else to do but stare down the stars, bring out those big questions, that we're afraid to ask because the answers we fear they might bring. And eventually, I think most of us will ask that question. I don't see God working. Has God abandoned me? Or is there just nothing there beyond those stars? In the heart of winter, especially where I'm from in Wisconsin, there's no sign that it's going to end. When feet of snow cover the ground and trees are completely bare, when cold winds howl, nothing about that tells you that winter is going to go away, except perhaps the experience of having been through it before. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean that change isn't happening. Just because spring isn't here yet doesn't mean it isn't on the way. Here's an excerpt of a poem called Lines for Winter by Mark Strand. Tell yourself as it gets cold and gray falls from the air that you will go on walking, hearing the same tune no matter where you find yourself, inside the dome of dark or under the cracking light of the moon's gaze in a valley of snow. Tonight as it gets cold, tell yourself what you know, which is nothing but the tune your bones play as you keep going. What we know is the tune our bones play as we keep on going. That's an amazing image because we don't tell our bones to do anything. We don't control them. We don't even normally see them buried beneath our skin. But they keep on being and going and holding us up all on their own. When Job questions God in the midst of his own spiritual winter, God answers with this mighty soliloquy. God says, "Where were you, Job, when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk, or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy?" This goes on for pages and pages and chapters and chapters. Poor Job. All he wanted was the affirmation that he was perfect and righteous, and that the things happening to him were unfair. He wanted God to admit that God was being mean. But what he gets instead, and what the author of Job passes along to us, is this powerful affirmation that just because we can't see what's going on doesn't mean it's not happening. Right now, spring is underway. It's not here yet, but if you've looked closely, some of the trees have dared to spring out some buds. Underground bulbs are starting to squirm with new life. Migratory birds have started the journey back to the north, even though they're not here yet. God's assurance to Job and to all the wandering fools like us who don't have all the answers is that the beautiful organic machinery of our world is still operating, moving, and churning with life, even, maybe especially when we don't see it. And if winter is both a real season and a metaphor for hopeless struggle, then God's grace is like the season of spring. It's no accident that Christians celebrate Easter in the spring. In spring, Jesus was resurrected, grace was given, and even though it took place in a tomb when no one was watching, few of us are looking closely enough to notice it creeping in during the winters of our lives. But often when we look back, we can see the evidence that it was there all along. God tells Job that God's grace, God's power is everywhere around us, and has been since the very creation of the universe, and reminds Job that his perspective and all human perspectives are incredibly limited. I believe that if we walk with the expectation of beauty, that we will almost always find it. And in the same way, if we live with the expectation of grace, even when it seems hidden, we can take heart and be strengthened, knowing that even in our bleakest winters, God is there.
as you go from this place and walk into a winter day, may the spring of God's love and grace and peace be in your hearts. Go in joy. Go in peace. Amen. Please come.